Hey, I'm back. Got my watercolors all ready with a little drop of clean water. I stuck all my paintbrushes in the water to get them a little bit wet. Got my setup, pre-painted a little bit. Made a mistake. Well, okay, something happened that I'm not sure if I'm going to like or not like. I was painting the trees into my wet on dry mountain. I was painting the trees wet on dry, only this little front area was not completely dry, so I got capillary action. It sucked that green into the what was going to be shading on the snow, and I got a big green smear. I got time to think about it. If I want to try to take it off, incorporate it into the picture, or have a do-over. Those are my choices. Okay, I'm going to get started on some of the other ones down here. We're going to have dry on damp, other tools, mask. I'm going to start with mask because of the timing. Mask is some sticky white stuff, and you can also use gum glue. Golly, I forgot the name of it. And what it does is it blocks out everything that you put on the paper so that when you paint on it, you save the white of the paper. I'm going to be using a paintbrush that I mark with a piece of masking tape, and I've run a little bit of soap into it to keep it clean. This is one of my paintbrushes. I do this to myself all the time, even though I tell you not to do it, and then I go ahead and do it. I used the mask, and it dried up and killed this paintbrush. We'll pretty much never be able to get that out again. Mask is kind of like a rubbery white stuff. And I pre-drew what I want. I want to have a white swan. I haven't really decided what my background is going to be, but of course water and maybe some cattails. I don't know if this is showing up on the camera, but I'm just going to paint it. It's white on white, and I want to fill it all in, that shape of the swan. The mask is fun, but you don't want to use great big globs of it. If you go beyond like the size of a quarter, it tends to tear your paper, because you do take it off when you're all done and you have raw paper underneath. And then just for kicks, I'm going to put some little wave actions in there because my swan is going to be swimming on the pond. And then I'm going to let it dry. You want your mask to dry until it's completely dry. Like generally I would say paint it and let it go for like 20 minutes. I got mask on my paintbrush and I need to remember to wash it off because I will wreck all my paintbrushes doing that. I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to try really hard not to get my hands in it and smear it up. While I'm doing that, while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to come over here and paint this. This is going to be a little scene where I started the background. I did the sky. I'm going to paint a little bit of the grass, and then I'm going to go back in and paint the tree. I'm going to make a tree. I'm going to make a springtime tree. And I want you to see some of the development of the pictures, so instead of just seeing the paintings as they progress, I figured I would go ahead and record some of that too. Mixing up my own greens. I used green, yellow, a little bit of blue so I can get an interesting green. And I want it to be grassy, so I'm poking my paintbrush up. And I'm going to let that dry. There's a whole lot of I'm going to let that dry happening in watercolor. I got a little pink in this cloud right there, but I'm not going to worry about it. That happened when I was making the sky, and I think I'm going to go ahead and let that cover up when I paint my tree on it. I'm going to move on to the dry on damp. That one's all about timing and having your paint kind of damp and your dry brush kind of dry so that you can get a combination of these two things. Wet on wet, the edges are really, really super soft and the colors mingle. Dry on dry, you get really crispy, hard edges that show a lot of texture. So if we can do a dry on damp, then I can get a crispy texture that's a little bit softened. You never know what you want to use those for. I'm going to try this old scrubby brush. I've been having good luck with that. So I'm going to paint a little western scene and got my sky. I got my brownish kind of mixed up. I keep fiddling with it and changing the values. I'm not sure how light or dark that's going to be. Yeah, that looks good. And it's pretty wet. So I'm going to paint a butte, a mesa. And I'm painting it right over my sky. So I might go ahead and beef up that value a little bit, so you don't see so much difference down below here. That went a different height. Now I'll probably go in and paint the ground later. Usually I would paint the ground first, but it doesn't matter. We'll find out. Nope, yeah, keep that dry. I get used to putting things into the water to get it wet beforehand. Right now, we're in good shape for scrappy. I'm watching my shine on the paper. I want the shine to go down a little bit, but not all the way. I'll cheat sometimes and blow on it a little bit, or just stand around and talk to people. Okay, there. I got my dry brush going. I want to make texture in my little mesa buttes. And I want it to be kind of soft. I don't want it to be as crisp as the reflections in my water. All that texture. Well, let that dry. I'll go back in and work on my ground. I'm going to play over here on the tree. I have a feeling my green grass isn't quite dry yet. I'm hoping that is now. I wanted you to see me paint the tree because the tree is all paintbrush strokes. Like when you were practicing your paintbrush strokes earlier. If I take some brown and I wanna make it my own brown, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of blue to it. And I'm using a big round. I have a tendency to paint with big paintbrushes, but you can paint with whatever you're comfortable with. And then I'm gonna start with the tip light pressure, and then I'm going to go up and kind of wiggle it out. Light pressure, press down, wiggle it out, add a few little branches going here and there. It's going to be a red bud tree, like a spring red bud tree, so I know it can have lots and lots of wiggly branches. Now I might not even want all of the branches connected because I am going to be putting the red buds on there, and sometimes the red buds cover up the branches. And I can let that dry and add some more, add a second layer of wet on dry onto that, and I'm going to keep moving. My paint palette top is a mess. Wipe some of that out, and I want to move on and do salt. Salt's tons of fun. Salt is the same kind of stuff that you use on your French fries, but not so much. I have to think of a picture. I want something dark. With the salt, you want a darker color so that you can see the action. And it has to have enough water in it to make it flow, but not so much water that it's all washed out. You can't have real sticky paint. That one drops just a little bit. And then I'm going to take that purple, make sure my salt is ready. I brought in a little dish of salt. Sometimes we have it in salt shakers in the room. You've got to have your salt right ready. You can't put the paint on the paper and then walk around the room and look for the salt. put on a nice coat of purple. It's watery enough, I think it's going to take. And then this is another speed and timing issue. This has to be wet in order for the salt to work. And then, of course, I want to add something into it. That's just the way I am. I'm going to make a night sky with evergreen trees. 2 evergreen trees, because I don't have a whole lot of time right now to mess with it. Take the salt, little pinch of it, and drop it onto the wet paint. And done. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to let it be. You'll notice when it hits, if it works right, you're going to get little dark rings around the salt, but the full action doesn't happen until later when it's all done.